she has the thing here to see who's watching at home. Cody is watching at home for the information. Okay, it looks like I'm going to introduce Pravrajika Vedaprana from San Francisco to the two of you who are in person. But we'll have people on Zoom who will be joining us, won't we? Oh, I'm standing here and they're just showing. Okay. Please come in. Now, you can move up closer if you want to. It's not a full house today because we have also on Zoom. Our sister from the San Francisco Convent is with us today, and she's been in the convent over 50 years and is going to discuss this morning the outside world of our inner eye. And I will let Pravrajika Vedaprana explain what she means by this. And you'll see who has joined you on what that. There's also a glass of water here in case you need some.
Thanks, that's good. I probably will, because I get a kind of a scratchy voice. Good morning. Om Hamsaya Vidmahe Paramahamsaya Dhimahi Tanno Hamsa Prachodayatu. May we realize our I, our individual I, as a spiritual being, and may that realization lead us to our eternal, universal I and being. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Tiyo Yona Prachodayatu. May we meditate on that, on the light of that adorable, effulgent being who is the source of this whole universe and of ourselves. May that light guide our understanding. Okay. So, I'm not sure this is exactly the topic that I'm doing. I just call it the inside and outside world of I, and they're a unit, definitely a unit. So why inside and outside? Because we feel we live in a body, and the body is our fence between what this world is to us and our inner world. Inner world is huge. It's a reservoir of all of the memories of our lives, of our feelings, of our habits, how we behave in this world. All of this we call our inner world, private, our world. And I can't imagine where we think it's situated inside of us. I guess people say it's supposed to be someplace in the brain, but if you think of the size of the brain and this, and our own memories of our life, our own inner world, the inner world seems so huge, I don't think it will fit there. Huge inner world. Outer world, that's really where we've landed ourselves in this life. Our responsibilities, our walk of life. How we live in this life, our relations, our particular attachments, our personal world of experience is what we call our personal, the outside world of I, of our eyes. And then we have this huge physical universe that's kind of a backdrop to each of our individual or our personal worlds of I. So that's our inside world and our outside world, and they're a unit. What I haven't said anything about yet is our eye. And our eye, it lights it up, it lights our every experience. And then there is something more than just our inside and outside world and our individual light of eye. And of course, that's the light of God, which embraces everything and interpenetrates everything. And yet this eye of ours, let alone the light of God, is an invisible thing. We can't see it. If we had somebody taking a camera right now and took a picture of this gathering in this beautiful temple, what would we see if we saw that picture? We would see our individual outer forms here, sitting in this temple, a still life. What if we had a camera that was an MRI camera, not magnetic resonance imaging camera, but a mental resonance imaging camera? It wouldn't be a still life. It would be it would be a video, wouldn't it? What a video. All the swirling contents of our minds we would be seeing. But the point is, would we be seeing our eye? We wouldn't be. We would be seeing all of these scenes, our outside forms, and all of the contents of our minds, our swirling thoughts. They're lighted up by our eye, but we don't see our eye. Now, when we say inside, outside, when we say that we live in a body, we don't really that much identify with our bodies. We mostly associate ourselves with our minds. And our minds operate in a very special way, a very special way, very particular way. This light of our eye goes out through the outgoing mind and its outposts, the senses, contacts all the objects of our immediate world, and the moment that physical sense contact takes place, we don't see this, there's a mental impression. So from physical, it goes to mental immediately. Now let's say we keep on experiencing out here certain things that we really like. So we form a cluster of impressions in this thing called our subtle body. And they become what is called a samskara. And that is a power unit, not just some kind of a thing. It's a power unit, and it impels us outward for more experience of that same sort. That's the way our minds work. And there's a reason for it, a really good reason. We have to tuck away in our memories each sense-contacted experience that we have. It has to be tucked away in our memory so that we can have our next experience. If we took a picture of 10 pictures of something, let's say throughout the day, and we saw that we got them, we got them processed, whatever it's called. What would we see if none of those subjects of our pictures hadn't moved away? We'd see a big blur. We'd see 10 images superimposed on one another. And we can't do that. We can't experience that way. It has to be tucked away, the next experience. We don't see this consciously, but that's how our minds operate. Now, there's another feature to this tucking away in memory, and that's that we want to replay the moments of our lives that really have given us a lot of happiness. And we can do that. They no longer are available to us in this sense world, but we have them inside, and we can refer to them. We can enjoy them over again. In fact, we do form, each one of us, in us, kind of like a big inner album that we can refer to and go, oh, boy, that day at the beach was just great. And we see this inside of ourselves. It's no longer out here. It's passed away. Okay. I have to keep on looking at my notes because this is really a new experience for me, so I keep on peeking down at what I'm supposed to be saying. Okay. So now, this sort of, like a two-directional circuit, our outside bodies and their senses and the experience here in our mind really is only a two-dimensional picture of what we are. There's a third dimension. The outside body is called, our outside world is called the grossest. Our mental world is called the middlemost, anyway, and there's a third dimension that's called our causal. And that is actually, am I going ahead of myself? No, this is it. Okay, no, okay. So the same two-dimensional mental and physical also is a mini replica. Our experiences here in this life, every moment, is a replica of what we really go through in reincarnation. Because we cast aside our physical bodies, don't we? I mean, we don't think we're casting aside, but they definitely are gone. They die. But our mental body, our subtle body, does not die. And in that is a huge reservoir of our thoughts, our actions, our feelings. It's all there, and that comes with us when the body goes. It actually forms a particular pattern of how we're going to experience, how we want to experience our next life here. It's our own inner language of soul, and every single one of us has this inner language of soul. And why should that be? I mean, why do we have to come back to this life? Because we wouldn't be satisfied with just living in the mind plane, the subtle plane. We already have an outgoing direction to our eye, and it's not satisfied with just the mental plane. We can see that. Let's say we're a cook and we have a recipe in front of us. And we go, whoa, this is really going to be a good one. And we have to taste it, we have to cook it. You can't cook and taste something in your mental being. Well, you can in a very, very fluid, sort of vague sort of way, but we have to come back to a world like this where things are, how do I put it here? Like it's a distinct outer world that will furnish us, literally, with the graspable objects of our seeking. We don't want to just have it something that's more abstract. We have to have it actual. And so we have to come back here, as long as we have a desire to experience in an outward way. In an outward way. Can you hear me enough? Am I talking loud enough? Okay. So we do. This world is called the world of karma. The world of doing and accomplishing. Actually, outwardly, we select our experiences through our own inner language of soul, through our own particular pattern that we've formed through lives and lives behind us. We come here with certain things that we want to do, we want to experience, we want to have. We come back to this world. And it's said that this is the only world, or some existence like it. There may be infinite number of existences in this huge universe, where the same kind of condition is present for us. We have to come back here to realize God, because this is the world that to continue playing out our own outreach of karma. We have karma. We've made it ourselves. We make our worlds here, our individual worlds. Now, I don't mean the huge physical universe. Our little individual worlds we make for ourselves, and we come back here Okay. So now what I started to say before, now it's the time to say it. And that's that this is only two dimensions of ourself. Both reincarnation and an understanding of how we experience moment to moment in this life. And we have a dimension called causal. And how they describe it, or one of the ways they describe it, is it is the akasha of our heart, of our inmost being. You know, the Upanishads often describe it in this way: akasha of the heart, space of the heart. And anyway, let me see. Okay, so. And if I go like this, I don't mean that it's just here where our physical heart is. What they say is that this akasha is the whole upper, if we're going to use our body as an example, as a I don't know, something to hang this on. The akasha of the heart is this whole upper area. That's the akasha of the heart. Way deep someplace. Not that it's sticking onto someplace physically, but that's where this huge dimension of our inner being, that's where it resides. And basically what this space of the heart is our inner, deeper mind, not the outgoing mind, the still mind, stillness, absolute stillness there, our intelligence. It's an ocean of light. And our individuality here, this I sense of ours, is like a point of light, like a ray of light. Oops. A ray of light from that ocean of light. So that's the causal being that we have within ourselves, as it were within ourselves. But we stay within ourselves. Okay. Now, this causal realm we don't experience in our waking world, nor in our dreaming or our mental world. We experience this dimension in sleep. And sleep is, of course, the total opposite of everything we feel here is real and actual, our conscious waking light. When we sleep, this is completely obliterated. Our physical bodies, our physical sense of experiencing and being an agent here, and a world that we interrelate with, not there. The mental eye, that's a lot more fluid, and same thing with the mental world, not there. No subject, no object, no experiencer, nothing to be experienced, unconscious, blank, dark, sleep. And yet we all need sleep. We deeply need sleep. We can't live without sleep. But it is odd, isn't it, that it's the exact opposite of everything we feel here is real. Now, I've selected this one teaching from the Pravrajika Upanishad that is talking about how we go in and out of sleep. And it's actually, of course, all these teachings in the Upanishads. This is an actual experience of an illumined soul. It's not just somebody spinning around, speculating on something. People have actually, great sages have realized, the great souls have realized this. So this is how this one Upanishad, how it expresses this. So as we get ready to sleep, when we feel we're sleepy, our self gathers because our eyes, the light of our eye, is what really conducts the activities of our outgoing mind and the senses, the outgoing senses. So this light of ourselves, individual light of ourselves, gathers into itself, into its light, both the outgoing mind and the senses. And this is kind of wiggy. They say that there's 72,000 subtle nerves networked throughout the body. And this light gathers the mind, the outgoing mind, and it recedes into this compact seed. This compactness is a sprout inside, but it's a seed. And it goes back to this ocean of our intelligence in the space of our heart, or in the space of the heart of us, I should say. And there it rests. And it rests in what is to us darkness. Everything gone, but if we have a good night's sleep, we know what that means. We need it. We can't live unless we sleep well, deeply sleep. It refreshes us totally. So then this seed, this compactness in our intelligence, that sprout within us, what is that sprout? It's the light of our individual self that still associates its consciousness with the thoughts of the mind and the experiences of this sense world. That's its reality, its consciousness. So it can't just stay like dormant like this. It wants to come out again. And it does. So it travels through the 72,000 subtle nerves all throughout the body, and bingo, we have our waking state again. We have our waking self again, our waking physical self again. And we do this. I think I need some water. I'm sorry. So that's how we go in and out of sleep. And the fact that that's why we go, so why is then, if we go back to our intelligence, because that's really what we're doing, we go back to this light of intelligence, why is it dark? Well, I guess maybe I've already said it. It's because we don't recognize that pure, undivided light of intelligence in our waking state, because our eye gets scattered through the whole outside world. That is our light. It's actually an infinite light, but in comparison to this ocean of light, it's like a little ray. It's just a point of light, and it gets scattered everywhere. And that's our association with consciousness. And so, when we go to sleep, we don't recognize the opposite of consciousness, which is unconsciousness. Consciousness is light and unconsciousness is dark. So when we go into sleep, we just have darkness. But our light is still there. That seed, that compacted seed, that sprout of light is still there, and it must come out again. And that's when we wake up. So, okay, that's that. So, I want to say a little more about the akasha, this akasha of our hearts. Vedanta talks of three spaces. Mahakasha, that's this huge physical universe. I mean, it's incomprehensibly huge. We study it and study it and study it, all the, galaxies and solar systems and exploding stars and stars being born and all of this. And so we think of ourselves as a physical being. We're like this infinitesimal little dot, or even less than that, microscopic something, and this huge. That's the outer space. Then they say there's a middlemost space. That's the Chit Akasha, and it's the space of our minds, the space of mental space or subtle space. That is even huger, but not in our sense of dimension, because that all comes from our idea of this physical space. But it actually encompasses the physical space and interpenetrates it. That's Chit Akasha. Think of that. I mean, at least I've tried to think of it. It's incomprehensible, actually. It's because it's subtle. Our thought can barely just get an inkling of it, grasp it a little. Then there is the inmost space. That's called Chiddakasha, And they often say that's the space of knowledge. I would like to say it's also the space of love, because pure love and pure knowledge are identical. So it's not just knowledge as we think of it here, it's also the space of pure love. That is our inner being. And that, of course, encompasses both the physical and the mental, and interpenetrates it. So if we're thinking, if we think of, this is of the way that often evolution is presented. And this is Indian-style evolution. It doesn't really matter which way. In the West, I think we say something like creation, or so, but in Indian terms, Indian thought, it's usually involution, evolution, and it doesn't matter which end you start with, because it really is saying the same thing. So it's saying with this causal being of ours, the very, very, very finest part of us, energy of us, because it's not just matter, space is matter, so to speak, so as it were, and so, but matter, as we know, is interchangeable with energy, so it's just as much energy as it is matter, depending on what point of view you want to take. So this inner being of ours, this Chidakasha, let me see what I'm trying to say here. So that from that space, or from that substance energy, then then comes out of that the whole subtle universe, and out of that comes the whole physical universe. But this original substance, if you want to say that, okay, actually involves itself into the outermost, the physical. And so out here, our I that is out here in this physical world, at some point it begins to turn around and evolves back into that pure universal intelligence, that pure ocean of intelligence that our intellect is. And so Vedanta talks of two levels of mind, and I've been mentioning it. The first, the outer level is outgoing, and it's constantly active. It's actually called our thought-creating energy, and that makes a lot of sense. It does. It creates all of our thoughts. It's the interfacing between this and our inner world, and it's creating thoughts every moment, and it's everywhere. It's all over our bodies. That is this outgoing mind. It travels through our nervous system, one nervous system or another, all over. That's our minds, everywhere. It overflows completely the boundaries of these little physical bodies, our minds. And then they say there's the inner mind, or sometimes it's called the higher mind, our intelligence, which finds its seat in this akasha of our inner being. That mind is the energy of stillness. Complete unity, stillness. So fine, that energy, just so fine that it's transparent. They say that it's material. Again, we say that so, but it's then at the same time, if it's material, it's also energy. So fine that it really is transparent, and it's reflective. And they call it, this is often an image they use, it's like a mirror, and it's a two-sided mirror. The inner side is the light of God, the light of our true self, the light of Divine Mother, absolute, transcendental, ultimate, unspeakable in a sense, totally incomprehensible. That light is reflected in our individual intelligence. Now, what's the outer side of that mirror? That's us. that's this point of light. It's like a ray of light coming from this ocean of light. And this, and let me see now, I don't want to talk too, let me see what I'm saying. So, this light, so our light, and our inner individual light, this point of light, this ray of light, this spark of light, like that, it receives every bit of its lightness, of its illumining quality from this universal light behind it. And remember, I started, did I? Oh, I don't think I ever did. There's a wonderful quote that I meant to say at the very beginning, and I forgot to. This is a quote of Swami Vivekananda's, and it goes like this. The soul is a circle whose center is whose circumference is nowhere, but whose center is in some body. God is a circle whose circumference is nowhere, but whose center is everywhere. So, if we speak of this ocean of light, the side facing God, we know then that all of our individual, that's the universal I. Not individual I, but universal. And we derive our lights from that light. We are nothing but that light, really, but we are still feeling individual and whatever. And that's not really bad. We are that light, that physical, that point of light, that's what we are. And there's a beautiful verse in an Upanishad, more than one Upanishad. By the Lord's light, the Upanishad makes it more impersonal, but that's okay. I'm not very impersonal, so I'll say it in a personal way. By the Lord's light, all this is lighted. All this is lighted. But how does it go? How does the Upanishad verse go? Just a minute. Lord shining, He shining, so everything shines after Him. Lord's light, everything shines after. By this light, all this is lighted. Okay. And how much time? I've only done a half an hour. Have we only done a half an hour? Oh my goodness. Okay, so I actually kind of wanted to stop my comments and have a discussion now at this point, because I wanted to have us think of, for the sake of discussion, I wanted to have us think of what it means, this individual light that comes from this universal light behind. If it's a practical possibility that we can have in this life a substantial sense of ourselves as that light, as spirit, not associated with body and mind. I'm not speaking of the higher reaches of spiritual realization, like the different levels of samadhi. I'm not speaking of that. I'm speaking of simply beginning to open a door into this inner space of our being, which is full of light, and sensing this light enough so that indeed we begin to feel that we're not physical and mental, but we really are spiritual. And that's not a small thing. If you think of this whole world of humanity as like that, how many people in this whole world of humanity feel they're spiritual beings? And I'm not trying to make a judgment here, because it's all just world within world within world. But for our point of view, we have been exposed to such great souls, one way or another, through our studies, or if we're really blessed by actual contact. And we know, or we sense, we feel in our hearts the huge possibilities of what lies within us. And it seems overwhelming, at least overwhelming, like we could never really, we just seem like it's like another world or something from us. But it is the same world. We've walked through this door, a little bit of this door, and of this akasha, of this space within us. And it becomes, this is what I'm supposed to be talking about this afternoon, but it gives us a substantial feeling that we really are spiritual. And what I'm wanting to discuss this afternoon is all of the psychological evolution that we go through, our individual self, our I sense goes through. It's just practical, it's right here and now. And it's not watering anything down. We recognize that there's higher and higher and higher levels of spiritual experience. But we have walked into the periphery, we've walked into the beginnings of the spiritual world. And that world is huge, it's infinite. So I really apologize that I talked so little here. I didn't realize. I thought this was going to take a whole hour. So maybe we could meditate for a while, and we'll do this one beautiful, the Hamsa Gayatri again, as kind of a guide to our meditation. I don't know. All right. Om Hamsaya Vidmahe Paramahamsaya Dhimahi Tanno Hamsa Prachodayat. May we realize our individual I as a spiritual being, and may that realization lead us to our eternal, universal I and being. okay. I can do another one. We can end with this one I also began with. The real, the
I think you've given us a great deal to think about. Now, does anyone have some questions? I mean,
that's
what,
it.
what your experience, I mean, she's given us tremendous amount to think about. What even brought you here to feel that kind of expansion of the inner eye? You've got someone who will discuss it.
I'd love to hear your ideas. But I'm really hard of hearing. Yeah, good. Good.
I was just going to ask, I didn't hear you use the word ego at all in your presentation, and then you asked the question about feeling more that you're the spirit than the body and the mind. So I was wondering if you could kind of clarify that. From my understanding, it's our identity with the body and the mind and our ego or desires that are causing us from not feeling our identity with the self. But how does the ego fit in with all of that, and what as individuals can we do to lessen the impact of the ego and feel the presence of the I more?
Well, you can read the whole gospel of Ramakrishna because he says it so beautifully and so simply. We have the unripe eye and the ripe eye. And so as long as we have the unripe eye, we're going completely outside. And we feel we're outside. You know, our eye is the unripe, right here and now. That's the unripe ego. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I don't think all of us here have unripe egos. I really don't. But technically what they say is unripe, or what Thakur says is unripe, is that you go, all this belongs to me and mine, like this ego has these tentacles, doesn't it? With like the arms of an octopus with little suction cups on it, right? Me and mine and like that. That really is our unripe eye. And we have remnants of it, obviously, inside of ourselves, or we'd be totally illumined souls. But that's ego, I mean, like that. Then ripe ego really is this ego that's beginning to feel its spiritual identity. And so you begin to say, wait a minute, am I really the doer here? It's not that you're experiencing it yet, but it's more than just a casual, intellectual, thought or musing around or whatever for our entertainment. It's something much. The great ones speak of these things, and so that yes, ego is right there. Ego is, what is ego? I mean, if the classic definition of the individual soul, which is the ego, which is the I sense, you probably heard it. It's, I mean, a lot, and it's, it's the soul is the reflection of pure consciousness in the intelligence, our intelligence. That's what our ego is and our self is. So there was I forget where, one Swami, I'm sorry, I can't remember who, they said, I have a respect for everyone's ego, because there that light that is pure has just been directed to their individuality, their bodies and minds, and it's what they have. It's that pure light is still there, and you can't just hurt it, or you can't just pound at it. It's sacred. And sooner, and yes, that ego, that light will turn towards God. I mean, turn towards our true self, if you want to put it that way. Have I talked too much? Okay. Anybody, that's a good. That was a neat question. I'm glad. Anyway, do you have another one? Can anybody else say? It doesn't have to be a question. It can be your thoughts.
Yes. I was wondering if you can talk about Swami Ashokananda, what he was like.
It's Devi Prana right here.
if you can talk about Swami Ashokananda, what he was like.
Can you talk about Swami Ashokananda?
I had a very brief association with him, well, about 2 years, 3 years, I guess. I was very young and very unformed. What he was like to me was an ocean of love, more than knowledge even, if you ever want to say that. He was even though I never saw his very dynamic lecturing. I guess he used to pace up and down and do all kinds of things when he was a younger man. I never saw that side of him. But you felt in his presence, I think, you felt in his presence that the sky was the limit and you were part of the sky and you were going to do it all. I mean, I think this is a pretty universal quality of any really great soul, if we were all like that. We feel in their presence the very best in ourselves, and where we haven't really arrived yet in our lives, but we get a taste of that, and you feel that way. And definitely, that's how I felt in the presence of Swami Ashokananda. He was not very tall, and yet I remember hearing a few of his lectures before he had that drastic stroke in the December of 1967. I heard a few of his lectures, and I always had the impression, physically I was taller than he was, but I would come down to shake his hand, and I felt that he was like this being that had he was. And yet he was, I think he was about 5'6". I think that's what he was. So what more to say about him? Yeah. He was known as a great lecturer, as Swami Prabhavananda was known as a great lecturer, among many other things, I'm just saying. And he was known as a great jnani. But he actually, I think what gave me my own emphasis, maybe in my own spiritual struggles, was that one time he asked me very penetratingly, and I was very shy and could barely speak in his presence, but he said, "Do you know what knowledge is?" Like that. And I just kind of shriveled. I went, he said, "It is love." And that just opened up a heart in me. That's my own language of soul again. You see, it doesn't have to mean anything to anybody else. I went, yes, that's what it is. That's what knowledge is. Knowledge is love. So I don't know what else to say about him, because as I didn't associate with him for years and years and years, living with him. Just saw him sometimes, those 3 years when he was still alive. Only 1 year when I entered the convent, and he was gone. But he definitely gave me everything in my life, no doubt about it. That's Swami Ashokananda. Hi, Devi.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Devi Prana. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Vedaprana.
Okay, anybody else?
Yes, I have a question. I don't know if it's a question. It's just, we'll see where it goes. Thank you for speaking about this. Thank you for speaking about this on the level that you did. I've been working with those same questions, so but just in a different way. Like every night we go to sleep, we look forward to going to sleep. Oh boy, I get to go to sleep, and 4 or 5 hours of our sleep is we don't know what happened, and that happens every night. And then we have the dream state that is a movie, and every night, and that's all right with when we wake up. All that's all right with us. That's amazing. And the focus that is memory. Memory.
Memory.
Yeah, memory. I think that's the culprit. Because in that non-dream delta sleep state, there's no memory. Although I do remember when I come out of it, hey, that, I feel rested, and I look forward to going towards that. But in it, there's no real memory of content because there's nothing to bounce off against. And that's totally fine with me. So I don't understand the idea of death, that we're so afraid of death, because basically I don't have memory when I'm 4 years old. I don't have memory of most of my childhood. And yet that existed. So anyway, that's subject matter about memory, if you could talk about it, whoever you want to take it.
So I really lost a lot of what you were saying because of my bad hearing. But you're speaking of just the association. Where's our memory kind of going apply to this? I mean, how, like that? Because memory is just part of the waves of our mind. It's a part of the impressions of our mind. And because our mind is gathered into the light of ourselves, it's not there. It's not there. But the essence of our memory, the essence of our mind, is this ocean of consciousness, this our true intelligence. It's there. And so there's a lot of ways that, Vedanta speaks about this. They say that, some say that we don't have any memory at all, but we know we don't know anything. And others say, well, how do you know you don't know anything unless something is there witnessing this? And so that school says, yes, actually that pure intelligence like that, somehow we're touching it with our little compacted seed of outgoing mind and senses. And that actually is, in a very, very, very invisible, subtle way, registering for us that we don't know anything on our terms of knowing. And so we wake up, and that's the way they always talk about deep sleep. They go, oh, you wake up and you're refreshed, and I didn't know anything, and I feel so good. But then this other school goes, well, how do you know you didn't know anything? And then, so that's the one way of putting it, is that the intelligence is there absolutely unaffected by waking or dream or anything else. It's always there. It's involved in our whole, all the dimensions of our life. Does that make sense to you? Okay. Anybody else have some good ideas? I really would like to hear them. Oh.
Hi. So wonderful to have you here, and I've enjoyed everything so much so far. So I'm finding that, well, the question is kind of how much of your memory do you take with you when you die and you're reincarnated? And is that part of the ego that's reincarnated? Because we certainly have impressions and some scars in our mind. I'm finding that I'm annoyed with a lot of the samskaras and old stories in my mind as I do this. And I want them to go away really a lot. And I'm hoping I'm not going to drag them either into the next life or into the light. So is... You have to put it closer. Oh, did you hear me? No. Huh? You have to kind of face it towards you. So yeah. Okay. So I was just wondering, I've always wondered, I see, I can hear the feedback now. Yeah. What is it that, what part of the personality, samskaras, memories, do you take with you when you pass out of this body?
I don't know, but but this is what I've studied with these notes, and what I understand is that it really is the dominant impressions of our past lives, and there's a lot of them.
A lot of them, yeah.
And they're called our samskaras. It's one way. They're our tendencies, and they actually have a form, because that is our subtle body. It's a form. And they say, actually, it's a form like this one, but it's not like this one, because it's completely subtle, and it has within it all from hundreds of lives back.
Yeah.
It's there. That's why we form over life after life a pattern of how we're going to experience in this world. It's our way of experiencing. It's our desire to experience in a certain kind of way. What we want to have, how we want to relate to other people, how we want to, the kind of activities we're interested in, our interests in general. That is a pattern that we come with. That's my understanding.
So is it unraveled as we do spiritual practice? As we do spiritual practice, are some of those samskaras unraveled so we don't have to drag them back into our next life?
Well, that's little by little, our light of I, that's what I'm hoping I'll be able to say this afternoon, but our I itself evolves back into its own original light. And so, indeed, what does that mean? We become gradually detached, because the I is attached to our bodies and minds and the activities of our minds. So we detach little by little from the body and the mind, going back towards that pure ocean of light that is our inner being, that is our inner being, our causal being. And this is something, this has confused me for a long time, and it's still, and it's not totally clear yet to me for sure, but I have a better idea now, working on this, actually, that this ocean of being that is our intelligence is still part of this world. That's why it's still part of our I, individual I. It's not God. But it is God. But you see what I mean? It's not. And that's what I think what really kind of inspired me a lot. The more I thought about this, and the more I felt about this, that we reach a certain point in detaching ourselves. And it's not, that sounds so kind of, academic and abstract or something. There's a whole psychological way we can feel, we can know in our own lives that yes, we are traveling inward. Just because even when we reach this point where we walk through this door of our inner space of heart, like that, we still have remnants of body and mind within us. The remnants there. It is part of ego. It is. It's part of our it's part of our original, individual I consciousness. And then look at the whole. Then we have this huge amount to travel before all of these states that they talk about, these high states of samadhi. But it's not only in samadhi that we have a feeling of spirituality. That's what really inspires me. Because I'm a small fry. I'm not a big, great, giant, great soul, or something like that. And so the thought that I can really be spiritual here. And not that I'm going to hang a shingle or something, and here I am. No, for me, for my life. That it would be that much more substantially rich and fulfilling for me now. Not some place reading a book and somebody goes into samadhi or something like that. It's not saying that's not going to come to us. There's no reason why it can't. But even before that, This is what I've understood from. I spent a whole year thinking about this and studying the Upanishads and the Gita and the direct disciples and their conversations, and this started to form in my understanding. Oh, it's not just having a state of samadhi that makes me a spiritual person. That's the culmination. But there's a big beginning, and it's a darn good beginning, way before. Yeah.
I remember Swami Vantananda telling me that Swami Vijnanananda, who was his guru and my guru's guru, had told him when he asked him what happens to somebody when they die, and he said that whatever was the predominant thought in your life, that is what carries you to wherever you are going to be going, or not having to be reborn if that was the case. So it seems to me that that idea means that the more we think of higher things, or whatever you want to call that, God or whatever, the less attached we are to things, the more likely we are to have that sense that we are moving in the right direction, meaning in a deeper, more spiritual direction.
As far as I'm concerned, this whole Southern California has the most perfect vehicle for that I can think of. Chant the name of the Lord in His glory unceasingly. What's the mirror of the heart? That's our inner, that's our higher mind, the intelligence. That is white, clean. It's cleaned up its dust. Don't need anything else but that. Where I'm wanting to go is to be totally free. But they say that these great ones, like the Upanishadic rishis, which were let's say they're jnanis, like that, the ones of knowledge like that. Even they come back, and all they want to do is to enter the life of Rama or Krishna. So I think it's just all point of view. I don't think there's any one way. Anything can be said here. This way that I'm saying is only my way. I mean, that's why I wish more people. It's only my way. Everyone has that. That's why I so believe in that. I don't know where I got it first. Someplace I read it. That we have our individual own language of soul. Swami Vivekananda said of Sri Ramakrishna, he was the only one I ever knew that could speak to each man in his own language. Of course, he was an incarnation of God. A small person can't do that. I mean, they can't. Because they're limited by their own language. They're working out their own language. What else can they do? So anyway.
The second question online was, what is a method to deal with insecurity, fear, and anger in the mind?
So, insecurity, fear, and anger in the world, what about it?
In the mind.
What?
In the mind.
In the mind.
Yeah.
How do you
Deal with them.
deal with it?
It all depends on our I. It all depends on our own identity. That's where it begins. And then it depends on, and then you see where are you situated in life and what can you do? Not just really what can you do. Because sometimes you can say, I'm going to start this society right now, and we're going to get these funds, and we're going to help these people that are angry, or we're going to help these people that are too poor, or we're going to do this, we're going to do this for them, we're going to feed them, we're going to try to find housing for them, and that's what we're going to do. Then someone else will say, well, they will say, I will sit down and I will meditate in the depths of my being for the well-being of these people. What you do is where we are, what we do. Anger, fear, insecurity, all the things that we see in this world that are not good, are evil, are cruel, are whatever, like that. We have to find, and that's why I say it comes to our eye awareness. It comes to our awareness, but it doesn't stop there. We have to have a clear enough idea of ourselves to know what we can do. We have to. Otherwise we just we end up with burnout. We have to know what we can do, and what we can do is then we feel it. We feel a wholehearted participation there because it's us. Yes, this is what I can do. If that's not there, if our eye hasn't focused there, guarantee we'll just get burnout. No matter what we're trying to, how we're trying to deal with the unfortunate sides of this world and the unfortunate sides of human life. There's no other way. I don't think. I really don't think there's any other way.
Vedaprana, is this afternoon, how would you deal with those in yourself? Is that this afternoon's topic?
It is in kind of, it is, but not.
We'll wait for this afternoon.
Yeah, okay. How about anything else?
Yes, I have a question. So when I look out to the universe, the Milky Way, and down here on Earth, it's there's
Ron, we can't hear you.
down here on Earth, it's only where 4% is matter. And we live almost totally in matter. And we could only go left, right, up, down, and time goes in one way. And there is time here. And it's hell down here.
Or not.
And what's the upside?
Well, you know. Oh, are you finished? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This world is a world of matter. That also means energy. And it's also called, and it really is this, it's the world of the pairs of opposites. So you say this world is hell, and it indeed is. It's also heaven. It's as much all kinds of pleasantness and sweetnesses and nicenesses and all that, and it's all full of cruelty and ugliness and meanness. It's full of deep, deep unselfishness and givingness, and it's all full of selfishness and pettiness and all the rest. That's why we have to come back to this world, because we have the seeds of all those things in our own minds. And we have to work through how our own minds relate to those things in a way, taking the name of God, because we don't see them actually as they actually are. If this world is indeed a manifestation of God only, God is involved in this world, we have to find God here. And we have to rise above in our own minds likes and dislikes, the pairs of opposites. I won't go there, I don't like it. I want to go here because I like it. And this I will discuss this afternoon. And the more we do that, the more we see something more in this life, in this world, than simply the physical outer appearance of it. Because we're living ourselves as if we're just physical appearances. That's how we live here, as if we're still associated with our bodies. So what else can we see? But what if we've begun our inward journey and we become closer and closer to this mass of intelligence, this light in our own hearts? How do you think we're going to see this world? even the cruelty, the cruelty of this world, the beauty of this world, all the pairs of opposites, we will see them in an entirely different way. This world is not one thing. This world is actually what we want to find in it. Why we've come back here. I mean, that's my understanding. Anyway, that's my understanding.
We had a request online for you to explain your quote a little more, the Swamiji quote about this, the circumference of the soul is nowhere. They wanted you to explain that a little more.
Well, I'm not getting it.
Explain the quote you did of Swamiji. The circumference is nowhere.
No, I know, that's really, yeah. Yeah. I think I will just say, to begin with, I really don't know. That circle, the soul circle is supposed to be in some body. And that doesn't just mean physical body, it also means mental body. And mental body goes a long way. Not just the outer, fluff of our thoughts. It goes much deeper than that, into intelligence. That's all our mental body. And so that's where we're centered. We're centered there. And then, as I say, okay, and then God is also, just like our soul, that quote says, has no circumference. God has no circumference either, but his center, or her center, mother's center, is everywhere. So then circumference. What would be our circumference? Actually, it doesn't make sense that a circle that doesn't have a circumference. Why would it be a circle? In our thoughts, that's impossible. A circle has to have, what do you call those things that you put down and then you turn them around like that? That makes a circle. You have to have a center, it's very true. Then we make our circle around it, don't we? And if there's no circumference, there's no circle. But that implement that makes the center to begin with, is there any end to, let's say if it's let's call it a big infinite thing like that, and it's made its circle there, which actually it is infinite. And then where will we find the circumference? We keep on making the circumference bigger and bigger and bigger. And pretty soon maybe we can actually say, as Swami, of course, he was a great, he had illumined sight, that soul really doesn't have any circumference. And its center evolves from physical to mental to spiritual. And there is no circumference. Whoever asked that question or whatever, when I first read that quote of Swamiji, I went, no way, what is this? I really thought that way. Like, a circle has to have a circumference. It's not a circle. What a strange quote. And I really felt that way for a long, long time. But then, more and more as I studied, I thought, no, yes, that's very true. We don't have a circumference. Just as God doesn't have a circumference. But we, unfortunately, have our center. And God's center is everywhere. Quite a difference. It's only 20 after 11. Do you want to have a longer lunch hour or something? What do you think?
Would everyone like to go down to the convent and get a cup of coffee? And you're all invited to stay for the preacher, which will be here in the temple, and then come down for lunch. Okay, bookstore's open. And the bookstore's open right now.
We actually have two more questions online.
Oh, there's two more questions.
Okay.
So the first was, why does mind behave totally different than our nature?
Sorry.
Why does the mind behave totally different from our nature?
I feel kind of silly asking these. Okay, according to my understanding, like this, okay, why is the mind different from our nature? Well, if we think of the fact that our nature is completely omnipresent, unchanging, this is the center of our nature truly is that. The mind is the opposite. It's the outer going mind, and that's what we usually identify ourselves with. It's scattered all over the place. So it's exactly the opposite of this inner mind, the higher mind, our intelligence. But, and this is our spiritual teachers help us with this. In this mind, with our light, individual light, identifying every, like this, that pure light is there. It can be a clue to us. You know how, anyway, last on Mother's talk about the Isha Upanishad. But really, in everything we experience here, that light of God is there. And it's not at all opposite. And with every idea we have in our mind, the light of God is there. It's involved there. And the more this tool of ours, this ray of light that really lights up our experiences and our world and our inner world and outer world, that light is, the light is there, but it's all scattered. And yet, it's not scattered in intelligence. And intelligence, when the famous peace chant, here is the infinite, the invisible is the infinite, the visible is the infinite. From the invisible, the visible is derived. The visible, the visible being subtracted from the invisible, the visible, the infinite alone remains. Visible is infinite, invisible is infinite. And so though we can't think about this because this is beyond our thought. When we enter that space in our hearts, that means we have begun to pierce through the barricade of thoughts. Because it's the way our minds work. So even though, yes, we say, oh, this is our scattered mind, the whole mind is there in that scattered mind. The deep, deep intelligence of ourselves is there. We call it scattered because that's how we feel about it. That's all I want to say.
And the other question was, is equanimity different than indifference?
I'm sorry.
Is equanimity different from indifference?
Well, I could ask the person if they were there what they mean by indifference.
Well, they gave the example of the world like crow droppings.
The world like crow droppings is what they call it.
The world like crow droppings.
Very common illustration, actually. It's a common illustration.
I feel this is way over my head, and I don't know why anybody would want to listen to me blurble on like this. Because really, these are very great, they should be being asked of some great soul that really sees these things. Right? But my understanding, what indifference? What does indifference mean? If it means in our way, the way we judge indifference in a certain kind of way, we say that person is callous, and that person doesn't feel for things and other people that just, like that, indifference. But there's an indifference, and it's like, well, the word, the Sanskrit word is vairagya. It means dispassion. That's not callous. There's nothing callous about it at all. And indeed, in that kind of indifference, there is equanimity of mind. It's deep and it's calm, and actually, it's full of true love, firm love, not sentimental love. That's real indifference, real vairagya is that. Not what we usually, we probably maybe have met somebody like that in our lives, so we go, oh boy, that person really doesn't have a heart or something, close to it. But that's not the indifference that Vedanta philosophy talks about. That's vairagya, and we need it. Vairagya and viveka, discrimination and dispassion. And that gives us a rich, rich being, full of feeling for others, and full of the capacity to give, real giving, and real loving. It's tough. I mean, it's not a sentimental thing, not a nicey thing. I don't know what else to say. Is that the rest of them?
They said your answer helps.
What was that?
They said your answer helps. Your answer helped.
Oh, well, I'm glad. Okay.